Okay, done. Okay, so um, have Mark, can I get your attention? Um, so it feels like we've been missing each other from my perspective. I don't know your perspective. I have no idea. I'm kind of curious about your perspective.
Okay. Okay. About what?
That it feels like we're going, and if I'm working on intentional connection, that is frustrating.
Oh, okay. So you set like an intention to connect, and it didn't manifest that way.
Over and over and over and over. Yes.
Yeah. So, and I'm going to do the best I can to not make it about you because you're the one talking. So you can make it about me in a minute. Well, first of all, I would look at, well, that's interesting.
I've
There's
done
those
a
little
lot of
buttons
that.
like,
I've done a whole lot of that.
what? That's interesting.
I know, right?
So I set my intention to connect, and the feedback I get is
Crickets.
yeah, little
Right.
violin crickets.
Right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
then I try again, louder.
So you put something out there and you're not getting the feedback that you thought you wanted to have. And I think that's one of the dangerous things about being attached to an intention.
Yes.
Because when you have an intention, that just means to me that you are actively thinking, processing, observing, taking in information about some particular facet in the future that you would like to have show up differently than it's in your current reality.
Okay, I'm going to argue with you about this because I feel like you're trying to say an expectation, and an intention to me is not a planned resentment, because that's what I call an expectation. An intention is aiming for something and noticing or getting or whatever happens with that, but it's only like a one-way thing. I'm not having an expectation that you have a reaction. I am just intentionally putting it out there. You get to choose, and you have, whether we connect. And I think I sent you a message that by design, for whatever reason, we're not connecting. I don't know why. I'm sad about it, is what I said. But I don't know exactly what I said, but for whatever reason, it was happening. And I was trying to figure out, without talking to you, which is impossible because I can't be in your mind. I just figured that for whatever reason, we're not connecting. And I'm feeling an urgency that at that moment, based on your reaction, you don't have the same urgency.
I don't have what?
The same urgency as me.
Yeah, well, I mean, I would imagine that's true because I don't know the urgency you have.
Right. Well, all I can tell you is when somebody says to you over and over again, by the way, you're dying. Oh, by the way, you're dying. You start getting really intentional about how you're going to use that space, what time you have left.
Yeah, I think for me, what happened was I didn't, which I would have felt guilty if something actually did happen, but I didn't. You've gone through a lot.
The last 4.5 months has been a lot. It's been like the journey of a lifetime. I mean, and in a positive way. There's no doubt I've got really, really positive things out of this difficult time.
So I received the information. I received the data.
Yeah.
that your doctor's saying you're dying.
Right.
In the back of my mind, but we're not talking about anybody. We're talking about Carol. She's a fighter. She's gonna bounce back. And
absolutely. And
so I didn't feel the need to, and maybe I should have, but at that point there's a lot of stuff going on in my life, and I was thinking that if she really needed some kind of support or whatever, she would have said, "Hey, look, asshole, I need to talk to you."
I think I said that. I'm pretty close. I just didn't say asshole.
Okay.
But I pretty much screamed at you right when you were getting on a plane in Florida, I guess. At least that's what it felt like. I mean, I felt it was as intentional as I knew how. Yeah. I didn't tell myself something about my value to you. I told myself, to be honest, I'm like, Mark is like focused elsewhere. And, you know, you're getting on the plane and then you're going to forget when you get off the plane. And, you know, that's kind of what I was telling myself, knowing you the way I do. And I just felt that way. And that's when I said, I'm sad because I really don't know.
You don't know what
happened. And I can't even get into the specialist to know what's wrong with me this time. And so I don't know what I'm battling yet. I don't know what I'm battling yet because I had a brain scan on Saturday, and Monday night the doctor called me and said, this is bad. And then my coach looked at it and said, get to the neurologist ASAP. She knows this stuff. And I had about 45 minutes of a breakdown, and then I just said, you know, you got to live in positivity all the way to the end. So that's, you know, I will battle. You know that the warrior in me will do what she does. She survived the last round, and most people die from what I went through. I didn't know that at the time. I've done the research since. And unfortunately, this is a afterfall from that thing, the infection that went to my brain. So now it's in my brain, and it's riddled with it.
What's riddled with it?
My brain is riddled with infection.
What kind of infection?
Myocardial, I don't know. I don't know. I'm no doctor. It's no, for one thing, I can't even get an appointment with the specialist. I'm fighting insurance companies and doctors and whatever. I have pushed, and for whatever reason, it didn't happen this week. I mean, it will happen when it's supposed to. But, and I'm more concerned for my kids right now. Because they, you know, I've got a 19-year-old and a 21-year-old, and it's not me that will, if anything happens, it's not me that will be left. And I just don't want to do that. So I'll battle for my kids to not be traumatized with me at a younger age passing. And this is the age that my dad passed. Hold on a second. Doorbell. Don't know why. Okay. That was a little freaky. Okay, adrenaline, calm down. Wow. Every ounce of my body just went into fight or flight. Okay. Somebody showed up at the door that I'm this close to getting a restraining order on.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That should not have happened.
Okay.
Anyway.
So what I'm about to share with you is not to let me off the hook at all, but it's to remind myself, remind you, and remind everybody else, like, what could be a helpful tool in all this. Are you open to that?
Yeah, absolutely. I would love it.
So not this week, but the last week and then 2 or 3 weeks before that were like probably the most difficult couple, 3 weeks in a row for me in a long, long time.
What happened?
An old colleague of mine passed away at a treatment facility.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, he was a little older, but still, you know, death impacts people. And so I was all set to go, and I was, I told some clients that I would be there and I'd go and support them there and, you know, be part of that and all that. And as I was planning on going to that, I found out that one of my friends that I grew up with a little bit in grade school was now bedridden because his liver was failing from drug use, I guess. So that was kind of challenging and difficult. And then I had this request from family members to go from, you know, like the following day or 2 days to fly out to Florida to remove this kid from school. It was like a round trip ticket, like fly out there, hopefully pick him up, convince him to come back home. And then like that day that I got the call from the parents to go over to Florida, that morning, I got a call from another, or I got a text from another father of a client who does not live in the area, was checking in and say, hey, have you heard from my son? And I said, no, but I see him later on today. When I find out more information, I'll let you know. So he's like, okay, because I haven't heard from him in a while. I said, okay. But this is kind of his MO, so I didn't think much of it. So I went about my day, and I got the call from these other worried parents and agreed to not go to the memorial because I thought that what's the more, you know, I had to prioritize.
Yeah.
And so I said, okay, sure. So I was not able to go to the memorial or celebration of life or whatever. And then as I was on the phone with them, I agreed to go out to Florida. And then right after I agreed to go to them with Florida, I got a text from the person's father saying he's gone. And I was like, what do you mean gone? He's like, well, I did a welfare check at his apartment and he's gone. And I was like, hoping it wasn't what I think he was saying. I said, you mean gone from his apartment? And he said, no, he passed away. And so then I'm like, oh my gosh. Then I, as a professional, am looking in myself like you wouldn't believe, like, what the fuck did I miss? What did I miss? What, you know, and I knew I didn't miss anything grotesque, and I knew all his signs, and I knew all his risk factors, and I knew, you know, that he was, you know, doing what he was doing, and but I just couldn't, like, what did I miss? Where did I miss? And just kind of like that the whole time, and just was like, wow. And then, so I got the news, right? And then he said, could you help me out, Mark? Because I don't think I can bear to go to the apartment. And I said, of course, that's not a problem. So I go over to Florida, come back. It's time difference, and I got that kid to come back. And now the following day, I go to the apartment and start collecting his items to send back to his father. And it was just a lot of stuff all at once, trying to process. And literally all I was focused on was maintaining my current obligations, and that's it. Oh, and I also, during that time period, had a speech competition, which I was so excited and put so much time and energy in. But the same day I got called for going out to Florida was the same day that I went over my time limit by 17 seconds, which means I couldn't move forward. So I was not thrilled about that. So it was just a lot. It was just a lot. I had another client who knew of the colleague, because that colleague was his therapist. And he said, Mark, why, I thought we were closer than this. Why didn't you reach out and ask how I was doing? Right? How I was blah, blah, blah. And he had a fair point. But at that point, I didn't say anything. But then the most recent session was, I said, look, I want to teach you something that I work on in my own life, and I think it'll be helpful in yours too. And so I shared with him the story of all the stuff that was going on in my life. It was helpful for him to see, and I wasn't doing it to take myself off of the hook, because I did apologize to him. But I said, look, here's what I want you to consider is, like, oh, Mark's not texting me back. Not necessarily one thing or another, but what else could it mean that he's not texting me back?
Absolutely.
Like, maybe he's got a whole shit ton of stuff on his plate. Maybe he's going through, a period where he's needing some time alone. Maybe he's, there's so many things. But if we focus on one or two without checking it out, just like my client did with me, it's like he thought that I was somehow treating him less or somehow not caring enough about, but that wasn't it at all. There was just so much on my plate, and I was afraid I was going to have a little bit of a breakdown, because it's just, that was a hell of a lot. Also, all so quick, and it's just like, whoa, what, and there's bound to be fallout. So, so I said, thank you for sharing that with me, letting me know. But it's just a reminder. It's like, well, what else could it mean?
Yes.
So his thought was, Mark didn't respond to me, which means something like he doesn't care enough about me, or he doesn't care anymore, or whatever, that kind of nonsense, right? Which wasn't true. Because I probably would have had I not been tied up with all this other stuff, and he didn't know that I had lost somebody that I knew, somebody that actually came over to my house and helps me does housework, and she talked about it, and I was supporting her, and I knew this guy that was on, and so it was just a hell of a lot. And so when I get really busy, or I get really some of that, my own work is kind of hard, I think part of what I do for self-care is just hibernate at times.
Shut down. Yeah. Well, it's funny you say that, what you said, because of course I'm thinking that I could easily have gone there in my mind, and I just kept saying those stories in your head you don't know until you connect. And so getting curious about not having a polarized position with, where's Mark? Does he care? Does he not care? I didn't go there in my mind. I mean, maybe a little tiny bit. And then I would just dismiss it, because I'd say, wait, no, Mark cares. And I was trying to look up something I said, but I think something I said was that for whatever reason, we just aren't connecting. And I assumed there was other reasons with you. I just made an assumption, because I believe that you care enough about me that if you knew that things were serious and that you could do something, you would. I believe that. So the story I tell myself is that, so I look for those clues. So I was looking for those clues. And each time, don't kill me, but each time we didn't connect, I'd say it's his ADHD. I didn't know, because I didn't know. I mean, because there's the focusing thing that I see with you sometimes. And then, I don't know this whole story any more than I could even concentrate on that story when I was going through my own hell.
Right.
So, and it didn't really matter in the end. I just wanted you to know that if something happened, that I love you. That's all I wanted to tell you. Because I was concerned that you would be upset with yourself if something happened. And I didn't want that to happen. So I've done this with my kids. I've done this with a few friends. I've noticed which relationships meant more to me, that I put out that effort to at least say, no matter what, I don't want you to think that you missed something with me. Just like you are processing through about these losses. And that's one specific loss that you mentioned.
Yeah.
So that was my way of just saying, you know, when I lost my son, we looked back at every text, every picture, everything, you know, and went through all that in our minds. Did we miss something? You know, I had an intentional relationship up until the moment he died. I know I did with him. And I wanted you to have a text that said, I love you. So you know.
Yeah, well, thank you.
You're welcome. But it does really, I mean, if we put this conversation out there, hands down, kind of a powerful conversation.
I mean, I'm okay with it.
Oh, I'm more than okay with it. I mean, I put everything out there.
Well, I mean, I think I swore a few times, but that's real. I don't think I told too much identifying information.
Well, that's okay. I'm having like tiny little sips of wine right now. So,
but I think it's an important lesson for everybody, really. You know, it's like, you know, for my client who thought I was whatever he thought, I don't know exactly. And in that moment when he was, it was so challenging, Carol. It was so challenging because in that moment we were having our session, and he said, "Mark, I have a bone to pick with you. I'm a little resentful, sort of." And I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, what's going on?" And then he told me, you know, what he told me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, my ego was like, "Look, man, if you only knew." You're right, talking about this.
Defend, right? And then, of course, you know, defense is the first, you know.
Yeah. So I was like, I so wanted to tell this guy, like, look, if you only knew, you wouldn't have those thoughts. You would totally get it. But I knew in that moment that would have been my ego trying to take care of me and not really supporting him. And so I chose not to. So I thought about it and I thought about like what's in his best interest to share or not. And so I there was nothing that I shared that was inappropriate or outside. So 2 weeks later I shared, you know, kind of like as a teaching opportunity, because I think we all do that until we check in and say, hey, what's going on? This is the story I'm making up about you. Is this true?
Right. And I'm so glad that we have that kind of relationship, because in my mind, every time I would try to flip to being a victim, I would go back to, that's not Mark. That is not Mark's heart. And that you would ever do anything.
Say that again.
I would tell myself, if I tried to flip into a victim role, that is not Mark's heart. You know Mark. So I'd have to have that self-talk to get clear with me that we're missing each other for whatever reason, and that I don't get to tell myself a story about that. I get to wonder until we connect.
Yeah. Be curious.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I took that stance. I did feel sad because, you know, probably feeling sorry for myself. And then moved on because there was nothing to do with that. And then you're like, do you want to talk on Friday? I'm like so confused. I mean, I got to tell you, when it feels like there's no connection, and then out of nowhere you pursued the conversation. I love that about you. Just throws me off, really throws me off. I think, well, you know, he's off in the woods somewhere growing a beard. and, and then all of a sudden it's like, and you want a conversation? Well, yeah, I wanted one like months ago. And I don't know where to go with that. I mean, other than yes, and then I don't want to hope that's actually going to happen. I think that is the one thing that hands down is real for me, that I do get expectations when we make appointments that those things will happen. And quite often, for whatever reason, they don't, whether it's
not quite often. Not quite often.
Well,
They've happened more than I would prefer.
Yeah.
But so that's interesting. So then I sent you a text because I knew that you wanted to connect and do the podcast or whatever. And so I said, hey, you want to talk this Friday? And then what went through your head?
My first thought is I don't want to make an appointment for it to be canceled.
Oh, yeah.
So I let go of whether it's going to happen or not, and kind of didn't notice your text. And then you're like, is that a yes or no? And I'm like, oh, I didn't even know there was a response, because I'm letting go as much as I can of like that linear process for me, the A to B, like, you know, we say something, we do something kind of thing. And because of what's going on with my brain right now, I can't trust my perceptions. I cannot trust them. So I just decide, I don't know. I really don't know.
Yeah. That's brilliant. Just keep that perspective. You'll go far. There's a concept in, you know, some kind of some kind of philosophy that's the I don't know mind.
Mm-hmm.
And if we come from that space, like, I just don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I was very clear. I didn't know.
That's a peaceful place to be in.
It was. I mean, it because the design behind that for me was to decrease my adrenaline response, because knowing that my body needs to be as calm as possible during this time of healing so that my cortisol doesn't go up, I need to manage by not knowing. And I believe chronic pain needs to be managed, that both emotionally and physically, we need to manage that, the adrenaline response. That's what I've learned during this time through this process. I've learned a lot of things, but that connection, the mind-body connection, has become very clear to me. So I call my kids adrenaline monkeys, and I'm like, you guys, I love you. Over there at UCR, I got one graduating, you know, this year in a couple of months with this physics degree. And I'm like, oh God, he's not going to come home, is he? Because I have to control my environment right now. I mean, you know, my little dog and my huge cat, they're the only stressors I got.
Well, then control your environment.
I kind of think I am.
You know what I had to do when all this nuts craziness was going on? I have a fairly decent sized master bedroom, and I have ADHD. And there was a lot on my plate that I wanted to get caught up on. But me, sometimes my attention span is not very long. It can be super serious and focused, and I'm on to the next thing, right? So I knew I had to complete certain things, like no matter what, and I wanted to do a good job. So what I did was, half of my room I turned into a different room. I put like a room divider, and I put a mirror out there so I could like see myself when I was trying to give a speech or whatever. And I would, they were just sheets for now, but I'm going to make it purposeful. So the goal was that that's my focus / completion room. There's no phone in there ever. If I have a project, I can bring my computer in there, but it'll be like, all right, Mark, before you leave this space, you'll complete 3 videos or whatever the case happens to be. And then I will write it down,
Mm-hmm.
and I will like close the curtains, and I'll be honest, like I have like, oh, I need to, oh damn, I can't. Oh, wait a minute. Oh shoot, I can't. Okay, well, I just have to make do with what I have, right? That's because that's what I do. And so it's up there, it's up there, it's up there. And my gosh, that's so helpful because there's no distractions in there. There's no books in there. There's nothing, just like tools, some pens. And it's just really a focus room where I get to focus and not have to be connected to the world. Because I'm so sensitive to stressors and all that. So I have to protect myself. My little, like, I don't know, incubator for me.
Have I told you what I'm doing in my house?
No, but I'm pretty sure you got the idea for me, if not just like through osmosis or something.
So when my daughter moved out, I decided to create, initially I called it a Zen Den, and then I ended up calling it the healing room. And so it's all over Pinterest. I've been working on this for months.
All of what?
I've been Pinterest, all the colors, Pinterest.
Oh, Pinterest, yeah.
So I've been putting the colors, the ideas, like people are really bought into this board. So it's being designed. We're just waiting because of the weather, because we're going to break out the wall and get a balcony going. But it's going to have fluffy chair. I've got a setup of puzzles because I've been wanting to do puzzles forever. I've kept these puzzles away from my kids so they wouldn't lose the pieces. And I've got another basket filled with art supplies. I'm going to put Carole King lyrics on the wall and Pink Floyd lyrics on the wall. Because those are.
What's the purpose of it? What's the purpose of it? What's the purpose of it?
It is a room to go into, to center myself, to do art therapy, to do music therapy because I'm a singer. I've got guitars in there. I'm going to reteach myself how to play guitar, and it's going to be you shut out the world kind of a room. And it's for healing. The purpose is for healing. So it's called the healing.
I liken it to one and the same. You said healing. I say coming back to yourself, which is. Well,
yeah. And there's a lot of reconnection that's happening in my life right now. Everywhere I turn, there's reconnection. And I believe that when that room is done, everybody's going to want to go in there. When they come in the house. Right now, everybody wants to be in the house because it's been remodeled so beautifully, and somebody named it the House of Prayer, and I really kind of think that's what it is, and that's the healing room. So that's the center of that healing part. And I have been intuitively remodeling this home, not for me, but
so why not use your office there?
Because this is the place I work. And that is a place I will get in connection with Carol.
Okay, so our intentions are a little bit different.
Yes.
Because I can still do some work in that space. I'll allow it, but it's project based.
No, I get that.
So because maybe I'm working on something creative. Huh?
This room I'm in all day. This room when I'm not at my office.
That's where you hang out.
Because of my sleep hygiene, I need to separate myself from my bedroom. So I guess similarly make this space about work. And when I walk into my bedroom, then I know that's time to sleep.
Yeah.
So it's helping me to learn really good sleep habits, especially with what's going on with me. Working on just a homeopathic, organic way of learning to not put chemicals in me to sleep. So I'm creating that environment. Actually, I guess what I'm doing is intuitively separating all of my space, including my kitchen downstairs. Every room has its very specific kind of purpose now.
Yeah.
So we're kind of along the same track.
Sure. For me, it's been so helpful. It's been so helpful. Last Sunday, I had a bunch of stuff to do, like to do billing and stuff, and I just hate it. And so normally I'll do a few, and then I'll get distracted by something else, or I'll talk to the person who's helping me clean the house, or what. And then before you know it, I haven't done anything, right? And so I was like, no, this is stupid. So I'm going to go in there and I'm going to put down certain things that I'm going to commit to. Then I just feel good. You know, it takes you, I don't know, it takes you probably, I don't know, I'd say 6 to 7 minutes to start getting into the flow of anything. Like it takes you a little while to get into the flow, but I'd say most of us struggle with getting in the flow. Why? Because we don't allow ourselves to get in the flow. And then you got your alerts pop in and you have, your phone, it's all kinds of stuff. So I think a lot of people are able to do and produce a whole lot more than they're actually able to, but they don't practice being in flow and being with themselves in uninterrupted space, because in the first little bit, it's not kind of uncomfortable.
You know what's so interesting, Mark?
What?
So, I fell off the stairs when I had a really high fever, and I don't know if that's actually from the infection that I had, because they never figured out what that was from. But I fell off because I didn't have a banister. So now I have an exquisite banister, but then I didn't. And when I hit the ground, what I did was I hit really hard and hit I think it's the occipital part of my brain, and then my brain bounced back. I could feel it going back and forth, and it hit the prefrontal cortex and went back and forth. So now I kind of have ADHD because my prefrontal cortex is far from, so now I go into super focused or inattentive, like you. So I turned into you. I actually smashed my head so I could be like you.
Well, I don't know you need to do all that. I mean, it's kind of a compliment.
But reality is, so that's me being intentional in this space, because I'm working on, because I really do believe that it expanded my brain. Like something did break in there where it like expanded, and they saw it in that.
I don't know that it expanded.
It's what it felt like.
As look, our brain is like an overcomplicated sewer system with sludge and all this other kind of stuff, right? So if it's not flowing on a regular basis and you get your head shooken up a little bit, this is completely scientific, of course. No, not at all. But
yeah.
Like maybe your brain needs to be shooken up a little bit.
I think so.
Because maybe there's a lot of dormant faculties in your brain that were just waiting for you to wake it up.
Well, and also, I mean, with what's going on with my brain, like the sheath is actually breaking down. I don't pretend to understand how this is working, but there's actual stuff that's breaking down in my brain, like the separations. So, I can't tell you. All I know is I'm different, and I question my perceptions. I question my thought process, and I am very, very intentional about my workspace now.
Yeah, it's good.
So that I can, because there's certain projects I also like, because I do immigration work, and when I have a report due, I sit down and I don't get up until that report is completed. Otherwise, I'm not used to that. I'm used to very linear thinking. So the task in my mind was for me to launch our podcast, and I couldn't. And what I did was I took over the money of the podcast to make it like more noticeable in my mind, because I needed like something to pop up that says, oh, by the way, you paid for this or that,
Some level of accountability, sure.
Yeah. And hitting anybody in the pocketbook is always a good thing.
Yeah.
I mean, you taught me that when I hired you as a coach. I kept you for
a month.
Well, kind of 3.5 weeks, 3 weeks. I don't know. It wasn't really that long, but but it worked. And now I'm working on 8 books, and guess what? I don't even need a publisher anymore, because I know this like in and out now. Actually, could be a publisher. I get it. I'm designing book covers all the time. I'm designing. I didn't know I was a designer. I just learned this in the last, I learned I was a singer and a designer in the last, week and a half? It's all crazy. Like, I didn't know this was always me.
There's a word that's coming to my mind, and I just wanted to check in to see if it's the appropriate word.
Okay.
So just hang out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, maybe you went through like a little bit of a satori. That's the word that came up, and it actually applies.
What word was that?
Satori.
Satori. Okay.
Yeah.
It means.
It's a Buddhist description of somebody who goes through a stage of enlightenment that they hadn't known before. And one thing that would be part of the hallmark for that is somebody that's had a personality change for the better, not for the worse, but for the better. Mm-hmm. And the way they see the world, and they can see like unseen truths that they weren't able to see before. And they just come and see the world from a whole different perspective. And so that might be part of the process of what you're going through.
So I process all this on video. So everything is on video. And I've been talking about Johari's window.
Yeah.
The unknown, and how it bubbles up through stressors and triggers. And that's where you get to see a window into that. And I believe that's kind of what they're saying. So I've had nonstop. It's pretty much been on speed. And I promise you, I don't take speed. Well, I don't even know if you take it or use it or however that works. But it's been epiphany after noticing, and I've been in front of a video every time. So it's all documented on Facebook and on YouTube, and it's really mind-boggling how much I have lived in that place in the last, definitely since I went to Kauai. That was February 5th. I don't know, month and a half, like just straight boom, 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 boom. It's like,
yeah.
Wow. Like the world's like, wow.
Get out of your own way.
I'm trying.
Just allow it to unfold.
Well, I kind of think that is what is happening. And it happens in the aloneness. So without being alone, I don't think this would be happening in the way it is. Because in those moments, I get these thoughts that come out of nowhere that's like, wow.
Key ingredient number 1. Creativity comes from a space of being alone with yourself, and making connections or making attributions or somehow putting together some coherent thought in a way that makes sense to you. And from that, you derive a new perspective of the world. That, my dear, was well said.
You're brilliant. You're freaking brilliant.
That was, oh, wow.
And it's on video.
I know. I'll just have to remember that. I don't remember what I just said, honestly.
But it's true. It's true. The creativity, I mean, I've got 8 or 9 books out of this, and 2 of them are virtually done. And I know how to publish them and get friggin' awesome book covers and get them launched. I didn't know I knew that stuff either.
Yeah, but I think people maybe different people work differently. I get that. But I think that the real creative person knows and understands the value of uninterrupted time.
Well, you know, up until just recently, I thought I wasn't a very creative person. So on video, I recognized I'm a singer.
According to who?
Huh?
I don't even know what creative means. I mean, really, when you think about it, nope, Carol, you're not creative. Yes, you are. You're amazing. You're a creator.
Well, and that's the thing. All humans have creativity. I just used to frame it up as I cook.
What does it mean to create? What does it mean to create?
Well, I would like to say it's something new, but there's nothing new under the sun. So I don't know.
No, but you can. Okay, for me, creating is anything that you bring into existence that did not exist before.
But didn't it exist somewhere?
In that way, right? You're looking back,
and
I'm looking back in your book back there, right? You created that book. Was it already there before? Sure, it was already there before. But the way in which you put it together with your thoughts, with your all that, that's what you created. It was not there before. Why? Because the facts were there. But if I had to go out and try to create that same book, mine would be a lot different than yours.
Oh, that's for sure.
Yeah.
It's so interesting because I'm sure you're not aware of this. I have blown up on my page that a group of, I don't know, 3,000 people are currently doing a book study with that. And she's telling everybody to buy my books so that they can do the book studies together. And it's like, you know, you helped me to get past my stuck place so that, I'm not going to say the word, but I know you could probably think of what I'm thinking, that without that push, those books wouldn't be there, that people know throughout the country.
3,000?
Well, 3,000 in that group, 70,000 in that group. If I talk to my friend Alex, there's 700,000 or 800,000 in his. I mean, it's getting out there on its own. That doesn't mean everybody will buy the book. Some do the Kindle, some whatever. That's not the point. The point is that what did I want to do? I wanted to make a difference in one person's life. And yesterday I go on my Facebook and there's a whole video being done about my books that I don't even know is being done. And she's showing off everything. Yes. And if you hadn't done that with me, that would not exist. What is all over my Facebook right now?
Maybe not, but you would have found a different way.
Who's to say? I don't know.
No one. I don't know.
Would have found a way, because when you came into my world, I immediately went, I'm ready.
Yeah.
You know, so I was
ready. I need to find more people like you that are just ready to rock and roll. Because you were a delight to work with.
Oh.
Well, I mean, you were right. You were ready.
But that's what every therapist wants. They all say the same thing. I want clients that are ready to work. And I'm like, well, you know.
No. I'm talking about coaching. I'm not talking about therapy. I'm talking about coaching.
Right. So with coaching, and
you didn't come to me for therapy on your book.
No,
you came for me
no. And you know, I have a coach in Australia that's coached me the last 10 months that hands down everything that's happening right now is through some of the work that we have done, that she and I meeting every week for the last 10 months.
Yeah.
She was there when I had my concussion virtually. She was there pretty much every step of the way, walking me through who I serve and understanding how to make that difference that I wanted for healing for humanity, which is now my tagline.
Great tagline.
But it took 10 months of working together, and it finally came out of me. I mean, it kept evolving and evolving and evolving until I realized it's healing for humanity. It's Carol Rose Atkinson, Healing for Humanity. So my logo is being created right now. In the next 2 days, it will be completed. and it says Carol Rose Atkinson, Healing for Humanity.
Wow.
And that took coaching to the nth degree. Now I had another coach for about 5 months, and then Joe came on board, and she's the top in the game the arena that I play in. And she really is amazing. And she took me to, we're rebranding everything. My website, my video, everything.
That's what's needed sometimes.
Yeah, because it's all new, because I didn't know who I was and who I served until in the last month.
And that's, I think, where I'm going next, is to trying to figure that out a little bit more. Who is it that Mark serves?
Well, the interesting thing is she had said to me, I need you to go to a branding specialist now that we've finally gotten this together. And I'm like, I don't need a branding specialist. I am the branding specialist. I didn't know that. She sent me to do this like little quiz. I think it cost me $15. And I'm like, wait a minute, I already know this stuff. And then I just went it down.
Yeah.
So
a lot of stuff you already will know.
I didn't know that I knew. And that's the unknown area in Johari's window that has bubbled up to be now in the known area, which is so, it's just whatever that word is that you used, the Buddhist concepts. I mean, it's like I do in my videos. We use a different word in different arenas, but they all kind of, epiphany or however you want to call it. Johari's window, it's the unknown, and the unknown, it is still all the same thing. It's just different words. Just like with interventions and therapy, every modality is kind of the same thing.
Right.
So understanding that it's definitely been the biggest learning curve I've ever had, but really it was all stuff I already knew.
Yeah, so a lot of times it's just reinforcing of what you already know and just giving you more fodder for the fire to commit to actually burning that area of your life even brighter than you were doing before.
Yeah.
Because you have more fuel for the fire to say, all right, I'm really gonna do it this time.
Especially when somebody says, that you could be dying, it definitely gets you very focused on your intentionality in your world. How do I want to use this moment, then this moment? And, I've lived a very intentional life because of all the losses I've been through. And yet this is a whole new thing. It's definitely, every moment is precious.
No.
This moment was just precious.
Well, yeah, probably that one was.
And you know what, Mark?
Well,
I honestly think we need to do videos more than just podcasts. Would you consider that that's a possibility?
Yeah, I don't care.
Yes,
I'll just show up and I'll just show up and you record it.
Okay. So I think that we need to launch some of this stuff, because I think that our conversations are wonderful and magic. I've always said that. But wouldn't it be cool also to have, you can't hear me?
It was fuzzy or something.
Fuzzy. Okay.
Now it's better.
Well, I moved my chair. So I think
it'd be fun to, like I said before, because we're a wealth of knowledge, to have some people write in questions that they want us to talk about. And then we just talk about them.
Yes.
Sarah writes in, hey, Mark and Carol, what are your thoughts about blah, 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 blah.
And then we get curious.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
I
just let me know when.
Okay. So the other thing is we talked about having a conversation about, give me a second here. What was that subject that I wrote down that I sent you a message about?
Oh yeah, I forgot what it was. It was a good one though.
Like neither one of our executive functioning is working. That's so funny. So
No, but that's where you're wrong. It's not your executive functioning that's the problem right now, because that's a different part of the brain. Executive functioning is like how you make decisions and stuff like that, but your recall and your memory, that's not necessarily your executive functioning. Anyway, that's the way I understand it. Maybe I'm wrong.
it's the secretary of the brain.
Okay, so we were talking about change, I think. Were we talking about change? What is it we were talking about? I don't know. But I remember saying that was a really damn good question.
Right. It was a very good question, and this is my frustration right now, that my brain is thinking differently. So I'm learning a new normal.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's a new normal. That's not like making it bad or good. It's just new.
Yeah.
It's different. And I think personally, if insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results, then new is good.
Yeah.
At least that's how I frame it up. So I would love to do another one like this. I would like to do more because this is really easy to do, and I'm so used to doing those that
very easy to do.
So I will download this when we're done, and consider where it's going to go up. Likely it will go up.
Let me see it first. I want to make sure that I'm not incriminating anybody.
You did not. I was very careful in listening to you. If you're asking,
well, I still would like to. I still would prefer to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just so I don't want anybody else to be able to piece together, kind of, you know, who I'm talking about or whatever.
So I'll set aside a place on my YouTube channel that is private that I'll get you a link for. How's that?
Okay, yeah, this works.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So
okay.
Awesome. I appreciate you getting curious with me. This was, I guess I called it a conversation before a conversation, but it really was just a conversation.
Yeah.
And it was good.
Well, save it and then send me a link and I'll watch it.
Yes, sir. I'll do it.
All right.
All right. You be good.
Good talking.
All right.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. All right.
Talk to you later. Bye.
All right. Bye.